Hello everyone. So today we are diving right into my hyperfixation on Greek mythology and Roman mythology. So obviously today I'll be showing my entire collection of books dedicated to Greek and Roman myths and legends. These books I highly recommend, and I think that if you want to get some books that are really in depth on Greek and Roman mythology, then obviously go ahead and find a store that sells these books so you could go and purchase them. These books I consider to be the best of the best in my collection, so getting right into it, classical mythology A to Z, an encyclopedia of gods and goddesses, heroes, nymphs, spirits, monsters, and places, and a lot more. This book, as well as Mythology, Timeless Tales of Gods and Heroes, are my two favorite books. I highly recommend these because they're illustrated, but on top of that, they really do dive into Greek and Roman mythology. So you could use these books as like a dictionary for who is who in mythology, as well as like a storybook, because the author really went in depth into giving the stories of each myth and legend. I am not the biggest fan of storybooks. I much rather you tell me who is who. However, these books work great together. So if you're going to purchase one of these books, I recommend you get them together because they just complement each other so well. One of my favorite things about these books I'm going to show today is that they don't censor anything out. So if you're looking for kid-friendly books, this is not the video. I don't do that. Moving on, I have The Meaning of Myth, with 12 Greek myths retold and interpreted by a psychiatrist. I thought this was really interesting to purchase because I love when philosophers or psychiatrists or feminists open up mythology and then just explain it from their perspective. It's just the most interesting thing to me. I love it so much. I love the symbolism and how things are interpreted in myths. It's just so cool. So obviously, if you like this book, get it. Next up, we have Greek Myths and Legends. This book is illustrated and tells a lot of stories about Greek myths and legends, of course, like the title says. However, you can never have enough Greek mythology books or Roman mythology books because myths kind of vary based on the place they were found. Some of the info that I got from this book I also could not find in other Greek mythology books. I actually got this book just like as impulse because I was checking out of a bookstore and it was sitting on a shelf and I was like, could I have that? And then I just bought it for like $10 and I was like, this is a great deal. The next book that I love is Mythology, Who's Who in Greek and Roman Mythology. Take a drink of water every time I say the word mythology, okay? I love this book. I don't need to tell you guys, it's illustrated, but like, I kind of have to, because if you love illustrations, you will love this book. But one of the reasons why I really appreciate this book is because it tells stories regarding the harpies, and I don't know why it has been so difficult for me to find Greek mythology books that mention harpies. Like, I'm not even joking, when I purchase a book, before I buy it, I go right to the index and I look at how many times they mention harpy, Seleno, or siren. Because I feel like if you're not going to include those, then I just can't take you seriously. I don't know why. I need to make sure that you included those first before I purchase it. And after I got the book, I realized that the harpies were included in this book. And I was like, wow, I think this author also talked about Seleno. And I was like, that's great. I love that. Because the only other book I have that really mentions harpies would be, I believe, the Classical Mythology A to Z Encyclopedia, as well as my Mythical Creatures Bible. Like, I don't know what it is, but getting info on harpies is so hard. Because, like, yeah, we all know what a harpy is. It's a bird person. But I want to know the, like, deeper details about it. And this book, I feel like, did a pretty good job. Although it might seem like the bare minimum for the author to mention the names of each harpy, a lot of books just don't do that. So I found it really good that they mention the names of the harpies. It may not be the most in-depth part of the book, but it's more in-depth than a lot of books are willing to be. Next up, I have The Complete World of Greek Mythology. I really like this book because of it not censoring out anything. Like, I really appreciate when books include harpies and they don't censor things out. But this book talks about Achilles and Patroclus being in a relationship. And I really appreciate that, because I hate when books are like, they were really close friends. Because yeah, they may have been really close friends, but like, a lot of the times I feel like people in mythology weren't straight, so why portray them as straight? Like, it's okay to have diversity, guys. This book is $40 in store though, so hopefully you got a discount card for that or something, because I didn't. I actually managed to find this book on Amazon for $15, and I was like, I'm buying that. Next up is Classical Mythology, Illustrated Edition. I love this book because of the maps within it, but also I love illustrations. Like, I hate being that person who's like, I love when books have pictures, but like, if it's mythology or history, you need to have illustrations. Like, you could sit there and explain to me how Athena's statue was built, or how the roads in Rome look, but like, I need pictures. Like, I'm sorry, I already have enough in my head going on. Please give me a picture. And the artwork in this book is just beautiful, and the stories in it are just, it just complements each other so nice. Like, the stories next to the photos, and it's just is so pretty. Whenever I go to Barnes & Noble, this book also is on sale for like $10 only. So it is a really cheap book with lots of information. Next up, we have the Definitive Guide to Greek Mythology. This book was also an impulse of a buy, but the illustrations were so nice, and I love how it's organized. Like, I feel like it's just such an easy book to read and get information from. Like, you're learning while also being very, very entertained at the same time. It's not a storybook, but you will have fun learning. And that's really all that matters. Because, like, how are you supposed to learn if you're bored? Like, I feel like you absorb information better when you're having a fun time doing it. So, if you're new to mythology, Greek mythology, whatever, you'll have a lot more fun if you get a picture book. I'm sorry, it just kind of is what I think. Now, I read novels with no pictures in them just fine, but for like history books and mythology books, I'm just saying the pictures are so needed. For example, The Ancient City, a study of the religion, laws, and institutions of Greek and Rome, is not illustrated. This book has no pictures in it. I feel like there's none in it at all. However, it's a really good history book. I don't really care about Roman and Greek history. Like, I really am here only for the mythology, the religion, the information regarding that. Like, I do find it really cool when people say, Julius Caesar, or Augustus Caesar. You know, I think it's really, really interesting. However, I'd much rather be talking about Athena, the sirens, Aphrodite, Medusa, you know what I mean? However, I do think it's really important to learn some of the history at least when you're learning mythology. Because if you learn the mythology alongside the history that went on during the time, I feel like it just makes sense. I feel like it just really does make sense to know what was going on during that time while those stories were being produced. It just makes sense to me. So this is a really good book if you want to learn about the ancient city and what went on. However, if you do want illustrated editions, the Illustrated Encyclopedia of Ancient Rome is a really, really good buy. You could learn all about Rome with pictures. And if you want even more than that, the Illustrated Encyclopedia of Ancient Greece. I got these both at Barnes & Noble on Black Friday. It was great. I literally can't tell you how important I felt walking around with like 10 books in my basket that I couldn't even carry because it was too heavy. And then employees being like, I'll help you with that. I have recommendations for you. And then like I said a book that I wanted. I forgot the title, but they instantly were like, I know what book that is, and then brought it to me. Like, I felt so special. So yeah, these are really good history books. Like, next up we have Greek religion and Roman religion. So I feel like this is the best way to phrase it, I guess, but like mythology and religion to me are kind of the same thing. Like, let's say for example that you believe in a god, right? And then I was to tell you, that's not real. You'd be offended. So how come it's okay for us to just say, Athena's not real, Medusa wasn't real, it's just offensive, you know? So I kind of use religion and mythology interchangeably because to me it's the same exact thing. Like, if it's offensive to say that the Christian God isn't real, then Obviously, it's also offensive to say, like, Athena's not real, Epona's not real, Aphrodite's not real. It's just rude. But I wanted to get books on Roman and Greek religion because I wanted to know how the Romans and Greeks practiced their religion. Because we know all about the myths. But how did they do prayers? How did they have rituals? How did they dedicate their lives to the gods? How did they appreciate them? You know, I just wanted to know about this stuff. Moving on. I really like witches. I think witchcraft is so cool. But whenever we learn about witchcraft, we hear about the Salem witch trials. We hear about these evil witches, and we hear about these movies and shows that portray witches to be, like, demonic. However, in reality, like, witches are not satanic or demonic because witchcraft existed before Christianity did. Does that make any sense? The opposite of Christianity would be Satanism. However, witches existed before Satanism and Christianity existed. And I realized, wait a minute, when did witchcraft come into creation then? And in case you had no clue, witchcraft was practiced in Greece and Rome. Obviously, there is witches who are into Satanism. There is witches who are into nothing to do with Satanism, but my point is that witches existed before Christians did, which is insane to me. Like, no one ever talks about that. Like, you open a witchcraft book and the first thing they say is Salem witch trials, the Christians being mad. But, like, in reality, like, witches existed before any of that ever went down. So for Christmas, I ended up getting the Witchcraft and Magic in Europe, Ancient in Greece, and Rome edition. And they just talk about how witchcraft was performed by the ancient Greeks and Romans. The book is 4 parts. And they discuss curses, magic, spells, and a lot more. It is not illustrated, I think. There are a few pictures in it. But for the most part, it's like just information about the topic. I also got the book Drawing Down the Moon, Magic in the Ancient Greek Roman World. Just like the other book, this book is focused on ancient magic and how the Greeks and Romans performed witchcraft and just magic in general. At the end of the day, beliefs are just beliefs, and as long as you're not hurting anyone, then everything's fine, really. And I think it's really sad how witches get painted out to be really bad people, because, like, I've been friends with witches before, and they did nothing bad. Like, they just casted spells with their spell book, and they performed different rituals, and were really in tune with nature. Witches get painted out to be evil, and it's, like, really sad, because, like, every witch I've ever met was, like, really, really sweet. I've also met Satanists before, and they also were so sweet. So, moral of story, let's stop hating on each other. Because, like, unless if we're doing actual bad things, then no one should be complaining. And just because somebody is a witch doesn't mean they're bad. Like, let's say, for example, a witch did a really, really bad thing. That doesn't mean witches are bad. It just means that they did a bad thing. Moving on, I also got another book on Greek and Roman religions, because I loved how it was organized. Like, I couldn't get out of my head. I just really loved how it's made. Like, it's not boring. It's just straight to the point, facts about just about everything you really need to know. It's just a really, really good book. And lastly, we have The Daily Life of the Greek Gods. I just got this. I haven't read it, but I really wanted it because this is the only book I could find that really discusses what the Greek gods lived and did. Everyone knows Athena is the god of war. Everyone knows that Medusa is a gorgon. Everybody knows that Artemis has a bow and arrow. But what did they do in their free time? What did they do on Mount Olympus? What did they eat? What did they... I wanted info on that, and this is the only book I could find that really discussed it. Like, for example, on the back of the book, it says, in the first part of this book, the authors find material for exploring the everyday life of the Greek gods, what their bodies were made of and how they were nourished, the organization of their society, and the sort of life they led both in Olympus and in the human world. That sounds so interesting. The second part is how citizens carried on everyday relations with the gods and those who would become the Olympians. Like, that's just so cool to me. Like, please, tell me how the gods nourished themselves. Please tell me what they were made out of. It just sounds so, so cool to me. So, obviously, love this book. I flipped through it and I really liked it, so hopefully when I fully read it, I'll like it even more. And although this sounds like a lot of books, I don't consider my Greek and Roman book collection complete because there are a few more books I want to get. So if you want to help me out with that, obviously go over to my Amazon wish list. But yeah, that is it for now. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!